What's going on, guys? Welcome back to United View. Hope everyone is doing very well. Welcome back to another press conference reaction, this time for West Ham United versus Manchester United tomorrow in the Premier League. It's the lunchtime kickoff at the London Stadium. That is 12:30 p.m. GMT. And Erik ten Hag, or should I say Erik ten Hag, has been talking to the assembled media at Carrington ahead of tomorrow's Premier League clash. And it's the final press conference before Christmas. There was a couple of Merry Christmases, Happy Holidays, and all that kind of stuff. But there's plenty to get into, certainly when it comes to team news. Of course, it's the time of year where not only injuries but illness strikes. So there was plenty of updates when it came to defenders that are possibly set to miss out as well. We got a bit of an update when it came to Victor Lindelof. Also an update when it came to Harry Maguire and some others. So there's plenty to get into. So be sure to click the like button if you haven't already. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. We also got a bit of a conversation when it came to goals and the lack thereof at Manchester United recently. The lack of goals, particularly from Rasmus Højlund. Erik ten Hag was asked about that. And he was asked also about the lack or the sort of lighter fixture schedule that United have now. Of course, they're out of a couple of tournaments as well. So as I mentioned, there's certainly a lot to get into. So if you haven't already, click that like button and be sure to subscribe as well as people begin to filter in. A reminder, if you haven't checked it out as well, there's a couple of. It's been a busy day actually here at United View. There is obviously the morning show with Flex and myself talking about that real big article from Laurie Whitwell about the recruitment department, the footballing department of Manchester United, and just really what a kind of catastrophic mess it is. So that was certainly very interesting to discuss this morning. And in addition to that, straight after that, we had the Flex crashes London Stadium with Anton Ferdinand, where go around, look at the dressing room, look at the ground, look at the dugouts, look at the baseball dressing room as well. It was a really interesting watch, certainly. So if you haven't already, be sure to check that out too. Let's get straight into it, though. Let's get into the press conference. Let's get into the questions. Let's get into the answers, because that's what you've all come here for, certainly, as well. We've got Mortar in the chat says, finally caught the show live. Wow. You never know. That's why you should always have the notifications turned on. If you are a subscriber, get the notifications turned on. Then, when we are live sometimes, because actually, I was taken a bit aback by this press conference, because usually the way the press conferences work with Manchester United, certainly since Erik ten Hag has been in charge, is the press conferences are usually at 1:30 and then they're broadcast at 1:45. So usually they go live around sort of 2 o'clock around that period of time. But this one was an hour earlier. It was at 12:30. So here we are, just after 1 p.m. over here in the UK, and we're ready to go. So I'm sure people are probably taking a little bit back, going, I thought you were going to be live at 2, Owen. 1 o'clock. Hey, you never know when it comes to the timings. That's why you should always have the notifications turned on. Right, let's get into the questions of the final presser before Christmas. Now, we'll start off with some team news. Erik ten Hag was asked about team news. Of course, we know that Manchester United and injuries have gone firmly hand in hand thus far this season. And Ten Hag was asked if any of the players that missed the Liverpool game would be available for the game tomorrow at the London Stadium against West Ham. Erik ten Hag said, quote, "We have some doubts. We have some illnesses during the week. We have to see who is available for tomorrow. Hopefully they are recovered, but we have to see." Now, obviously we knew that Marcus Rashford was a doubt for the Liverpool game. He did make it in the end. He had been dealing with, I think it was gastroenteritis, the winter vomiting bug. I know. Gross. We knew that Anthony Martial was dealing with illness as well, so clearly there's a bit of an injury bug, and there is a quite literal illness bug going around Manchester United over the last couple of weeks or so. So I guess we're just going to have to wait and see what that team news is put out there, and see that starting 11 that's put out and see who makes it. And then if they don't, I guess we have to either assume, obviously, possible injury, but most likely an illness. And it's that time of year. Everyone's got it at the moment. So, yeah, a couple of illnesses and a couple of injuries. Now, two of sort of the biggest sort of absences that many Manchester United fans have been waiting for to return is Casemiro and Lisandro Martinez. Now, previously, Erik ten Hag had said, it was actually out in Copenhagen in Denmark prior to the game in the Champions League, that he didn't expect Casemiro and Licha before Christmas. So he was asked by Simon Peach for an update on their fitness, their recovery, when we can expect them to be available. And Erik ten Hag said, quote, they are not available for Christmas. Mid-January, we expect them back. So basically, the timeline is essentially what we thought it was. If you were hoping to see Lisandro Martinez, I mean, this is what is funny, isn't it, with words? Because when they say not available for Christmas, well, Christmas is in 3 days. So to be honest with you, I don't think they're not going to be coming back in 3 days. There have been pictures, haven't there, of them training out in the grass. I don't know if they've actually participated in first team training yet, or the images you see as them sort of maybe doing a warm up, but then off doing their individual work. So they're saying mid-January for the both of them. I guess the fortunate thing is for Manchester United though is that there's not a ton of games between now and mid-January for us. Obviously, we've got West Ham tomorrow. Then we've got Aston Villa, Boxing Day. We've got Forest on the 30th. And then in January, we've only got 2 games, haven't we? We've got Wigan and we've got Spurs, I think it is, at home. That's it. So we've got a pretty light fixture list in comparison to last year and in comparison to earlier this season as well. Obviously, the lighter fixture list is based upon failure because we are out of Europe entirely, finished bottom of our group in the Champions League, and we were out of the Carabao Cup because we got absolutely decimated by Newcastle. But it does mean that in terms of fixtures, we're not going to have to wait too long for Casemiro and Lisandro Martinez to be back. I mean, just think of it when it comes to Licha. I mean, this guy, I know that he, played a bit in pre-season and played at a bit at the beginning of the season, but we haven't had a fully fit Lisandro Martinez. But by the time he comes back, so let's say it is mid-January, and when did he get injured? Was it April? Was it April he got hurt in that second half against Sevilla? I think that was April or late March, whatever it may be. We haven't had a fully fit, fully firing Lisandro Martinez for the better part of 9 months. That is, that is massive. So to get him back and to get Licha back, proper Martinez back is going to be a big boost for us. Not going to do what we have done a lot this season with a lot of these injuries, which is when Martinez is back, right, that's it. We're going to be winning every single match. We're going to be this, we're going to be that. Martinez is the solution to all of our woes because it's far bigger and greater than just one player returning. But Martinez, particularly for how we play out from the back and our build-up play, and really the sort of tenacity that we were really praising someone like Rafael Varane for against Liverpool. He is so important in that, and his partnership with Varane in the heart of that defence is so important. So him coming back is going to be really important. Casemiro is a funny one because prior to the injury, he was struggling. But I think just anyone in that midfield system is going to struggle. But I don't think you can be naive and ignore that. If you get your best players back, you're going to play better. You're going to put in better performances, and the ideal vision of Ten Hag's Manchester United, whatever that may be, because he said it's not the Ajax style, will be easier to implement with the better players back. So Martinez and Casemiro not back before Christmas, which basically means they're not going to play against West Ham, but they're not expected to be back until mid-January. So those, probably not even that FA Cup match against Wigan. You're probably looking at that game against Spurs, because that is literally mid-January, I believe it is. Let me double check that actually now whilst I'm live. I think it is. I swear it's January 14. Have I made that up? 14th of January. So that would probably be the time that we'd be looking at for Martinez and Casemiro, if they can make it back by then. Magnus in the chat says, that bug is no joke. Lost a stone to it when I got it a few weeks back. Mate, the winter stomach virus, that is no joke. I've had, not this year, but I have had it previously. And nasty stuff. I couldn't think of anything worse than having that and then playing in front of like nearly 80,000 people, of which many are not happy with you as well. That's pretty rough stuff. So, yes, quite a few illnesses in Manchester United at the moment. As far as other injuries as well, we got a bit of an update on some defensive casualties at the moment, specifically Harry Maguire and Victor Lindelof, as well as Mason Mount in the midfield. Starting off with Mount, Erik ten Hag said, quote, Mason Mount is similar. He's unavailable into January, so it looks like his timeline's going to probably match up pretty close with Casemiro and also with Lisandro Martinez. So they're saying mid-January, which is quite interesting because I feel like, was it me or did I create this in my mind? Maybe I did. But I swear I saw Mason Mount pictured in training several weeks ago or something like that. So, Yeah, it looks like Mason Mount, along with Casemiro and Martinez, is going to be into January. Maybe a bit earlier in January than Martinez and Casemiro. Particularly Martinez, they'll have to ease him back. He's been out for so long and had a couple of surgeries. Mount, they're saying, again, in January. Harry Maguire, Erik ten Hag said he expects him early in the new year. That was what was reported, wasn't it, after that Bayern Munich game? Looked like he had done his groin or something like that, saying that, because it was Maguire and Shaw came off in that game, wasn't it? And Shaw was fine. He played against Liverpool. Maguire, they said it was, an injury, but they didn't think it was that significant. So, I mean, that game against Bayern was it 10 days ago? Something like that, I think it was. Was it on the 12th? Yeah, 10 days ago, and they're saying January. So by that point, he'd have been out, 3 weeks-ish, something like that. So not too significant. So they reckon he's going to be back early in the new year. An update from Victor Lindelof, who we haven't actually seen for a couple of weeks. He has actually undergone surgery. Erik ten Hag said, quote, Victor Lindelof is not available. He has done surgery, so he's going to be out for a couple of weeks. Now, he was asked, Ten Hag, what had happened regarding Lindelof to undergo surgery, but as we know, when it comes to Ten Hag and just really United in general, they don't really disclose injury details that much if they don't have to or if it's not blatantly obvious. So I don't know if that's been put out there or reported. I mean, if it has, you can let me know. I'm sure you will in the chat. But as far as I can recall, I can't recall anyone saying specifically what it was with Victor Lindelof that he was out of action for, but he's undergone surgery. He's going to be out for a couple of weeks. It would suggest, I would think, if they're saying a couple of weeks, it's not massively serious or anything like that. So, look, we've got a bit of a defensive crisis again, because we've got a lot of centre-backs out injured at the moment and a lot of, and some suspensions too. I mean, you look at that back four that's going to play against West Ham tomorrow. It's most likely going to be Shaw, left back. Well, it will be this, and I can't think of any changes. It would be Shaw, Varane, Evans, Wan-Bissaka. And then when it comes to the backup options there, I don't think there are any, are they? Are there any other options? The other left back, I guess you could have Reguilon, maybe. It'd be available. But Malasia's not back. Centre backs, Licha is injured, Maguire's injured. Lindelof's injured, so that just leaves Varane and Evans. Right back, Dalot suspended, so it's going to have to be Wan-Bissaka. So we've got pretty, we're pretty threadbare at the back once again. And it feels like, is it me, or have we had that conversation about a missing back four on several occasions this season, and then players have come back, and then other players have gone again? Like, we haven't, and this is where you do sympathise with Erik ten Hag to an extent, where you just go like, that back four, it's never been settled the whole way through the season. Anyone that gets a run in the team almost has to overcompensate for other people that aren't available, so they have to play so many games, and then they pick up injuries again. So that back four, once again, I mean, earlier on in the season, it was the left backs. We didn't have any left backs. Now, we've got suspensions. We've barely got any centre backs anymore as well. It's constant. The back four and the midfield are just completely stricken apart at the moment. I mean, look at the midfield injuries we've got at the moment. Thankfully, Eriksen's back. He wasn't asked about Eriksen, but I would expect him to be involved. He could possibly start. But we were going into Anfield with it being Kobbie Mainoo, McTominay and Amrabat, and it had to be, because that's literally the three midfielders we pretty much had. I mean, maybe you could throw Hannibal in there, but we really did not have options. We had, Eriksen out, we had Casemiro out, we had Bruno suspended, we had Mason Mount injured. Like, we were 4 players all missing. So it's crazy. When you do take a step back and look at it, it is nuts. And that's what's been so frustrating with the injuries and the absences this season. It does feel like just when you get a couple people back through the door, then suddenly a couple other people disappear or a couple other people get injured. So hopefully tomorrow, look, that back four doesn't pick up any injuries, particularly from the centre-back perspective, because, I mean, you're only really looking at, if Johnny Evans or Varane gets injured, it's Luke Shaw going to centre-back and it's Reguilon coming in, and then that is it. Then we are really out of options. Then we're looking at, hopefully Dalot will be back after the West Ham game. He can be involved in Boxing Day, but it's threadbare to say the least. Very, very threadbare. So hopefully, though, as I mentioned earlier on, when it comes to people like Martinez, Casemiro, Mason Mount, we're only looking at now a couple of weeks until they're going to be back. So it's just about getting through this period, and also getting through this period without someone else getting injured either. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we can buck that trend. Certainly with the sort of reduced fixture list, hopefully that will help that as well. What are people saying in the chat at the moment here? G says, these random surgeries catch me off guard so much. Magnus says, Erik ten Hag won't play two holding midfielders, not his style. He didn't do it at Ajax and played Gravenberch as the deeper playmaker and Alvarez at West Ham as the defensive midfielder together with Bergwijn in the Bruno role. Basically saying that he's not going to do that. What else are people saying here at the moment? David says, hi, Owen. Hello. Happy holidays. There you go. Berserker says, the goals will come, eh? We're going to talk about goals in just a second, certainly. As people file in, click the like button. Be sure to subscribe as well, bottom right-hand corner. And as Stando says here, this is quite an interesting one because this has been the argument, hasn't it, all season about the injuries and absences at United. These injuries are not limited to United. Other clubs are also suffering. That is true. And we are not alone in that aspect this season. You look at Spurs, you look at Newcastle, you look at Arsenal at points, you look at Chelsea. A lot of clubs have been having struggles with injuries. It does feel like a compact last season. A lack of a break over the summer is really starting to catch up with a lot of players. That's not to say that it's just enough just to be like, wow, everyone's struggling with it. It is what it is. Manchester United clearly have a problem, and they are very much addressing that problem because the entire medical department is getting ripped apart and overhauled, as is everything at United at the moment, and good. Certainly, absolutely good. This club needs to be fixed in every single department. That article this morning, I can't stress enough. I posted on social media today, and I would really recommend it. Read that article by Laurie Whitwell because it's so eye-opening. And it's not to say that everything in it is true as well, because parts of it might not be true. Part of it might be interpretation. I mean, it says in the article some of the arguments that John Murtough had with people, whether it be Sir Alex Ferguson, Nicky Butt, he puts down to a misunderstanding. There's always two sides, or actually even more sometimes, than to every story. There's sometimes one person's version, another person's version, and the truth is somewhere in between all of that. So you can't believe everything you read in it, certainly, but it's eye-opening. It's absolutely eye-opening, and it's something I've been talking about recently quite a bit on these kind of shows, is the sort of politics involved at Manchester United and the sort of Succession-esque going-ons behind the scenes at that executive level. It is way too many cooks, in the same room. Too many cooks spoil the broth. It's designed by committee. I mean, the phrase is a camel is a horse designed by committee, basically meaning if you get too many people's conversations and ideas into one room, you actually get away from what the original design was and the original idea was. And that's kind of what Manchester United feels like been dealing with for a long time. So it's well worth a read, certainly. And going back to the injuries, it's another department that needs to be completely overhauled, completely scrapped, burnt down, built back up, because it's not fit for purpose. I mean, this season we've been really affected by injuries, certainly, but we've been like that for several years, it feels like, doesn't it? For several years we've been really struggling with injuries. I mean, last year was almost a bit atypical that we weren't too bad with injuries, but under Ollie's tenure we had some really, really bad injuries as well, and it was crazy. Super chat from Red Baron here says, how do you cope mentally with reading all the backstabbing and clickbait going on in the media, especially with United? It seems it will crack people. It doesn't really affect me mentally or anything like that. I think if you're, it's a strange one with media, isn't it? I think if you're a public figure, unfortunately, it comes with the territory and all that kind of stuff. We kind of spoke about this morning, Flex and myself, on the morning show, that we certainly here at United View, and I can speak for myself because I know I'm involved in these conversations, when it comes to titles or clickbait on thumbnails and stuff like that, we have really big conversations about that, that we don't want to mislead. Sometimes you have to, it's the news, sometimes you have to talk about what the people are reporting, and then I think there's a sort of maybe a bit of a a bit of a comprehension issue sometimes when it comes to that. Some people talk about media literacy, and I think that's a very interesting argument when they talk about, you can see like a video or you see like a thumbnail. For instance, this morning, the Times are reporting that Jim Ratcliffe, Ineos, when they come in, are going to have full control, total control. So you say that's the story. Jim Ratcliffe, total control. And there is this strange reaction from some people, which is if it's not news that they like, it's not true. It's just complete and total denial. When it comes to some of the stuff, when it comes to Manchester United, you have to be really careful too. And I think, in fairness, I think we do all of this quite well here at UV. And of course, I'm biased, but I think we do have very good discussions and debates about sort of the merit of the story, the source in which it's come from, how believable it is, the timing of it. And again, I think that's when it comes down to media literacy. I think that's when it comes down to taking the article, taking the bit of information for what it is, thinking about it, saying, okay, let's assume not all of it is true. Let's assume there's maybe an element of truth in it. Let's think of why is it completely false? Like, where does it sit? Who's it coming from? What's the timing involved in all of it? They've been waiting, for instance, it's like after a lost dressing room sources and all that kind of stuff that they've been sitting on for a while. Part of that story will have an element of truth in it, but then you go, but it's just come after a loss, so that's the timing, and they didn't go to the club for a comment. That's a bit suspicious. That's part of, I think that's just part of the modern world, is there is an abundance now of information at your fingertips, and it's almost like the responsibility's gone from the broadcaster or from the writer of the article in terms of whether or not it's accurate or not. It's almost become upon the reader, to kind of figure out whether or not that's true or not, because those kind of, I guess standards have disappeared a long time ago. And that's the age we're in. We're in the information age. It's an abundance of information. There's an abundance of articles. You can write on social media. It feels like almost anything you want. There are articles and there are, social media accounts that are just about putting out stuff that isn't true. And now they get paid for it because, there's engagement farming is a real term. So it's very difficult. But like I said, I do think that is something we do pretty well here at United View, is try and get that information and discuss it. And, whether or not you believe it, you don't believe it, look at as many sides of it as you possibly can. Appreciate that maybe people might not agree with your opinion, and that's okay. If people do have a differing opinion to you, challenge them and ask them why. So why do you think that is? And if they've got differing opinions, that's what it is. Everyone has opinions. But I think that is something that is kind of lost nowadays, is as I've said before, the art of conversation, the art of dissecting news and looking at timing and sources and all that kind of stuff. I think that is unfortunately long gone. And because there is an abundance of information and there is an abundance of different outlets, people can just kind of go to places where they'll tell them things they want to hear, as opposed to what is the reality of the situation. But that is just the modern world, unfortunately. If you hear something from me that you don't like or you don't think is, matches up with your opinions, you can go somewhere else and hear something that you want to hear, and it doesn't matter whether it's true or not. And that's just the world, isn't it? I think, unfortunately. Red Baron also says, feel dizzy with so many articles pushed on United. Well, and that's also my big thing with the media too. I mean, you've probably seen this a million different times, is that they will put Man United in the headline for anything. I mean, get ready. Transfer season is on the horizon. We know what this means, which means we'll be linked with every single player, whether or not we're getting them. I've said from the beginning, I think 2 loans. We might do a permanent signing if we sell someone. I mean, there are rumours about Martial. If we were to sell Anthony Martial, I think we probably would buy a striker. Or maybe we would still do the loan and save the money for the summer. I really don't think you can look that far ahead with it. But that will start over again. People will start doing the videos saying, we're getting this player, we're signing this player, it's happening, here we go. And nothing's going. You know what I mean? That will start again. And like I said, unfortunately, it's upon the viewer to go where they feel the information is the most accurate, really, but you see it all the time with United, I mean, I've seen articles from big outlets just put in the title or the headline, sort of ex-United target signs for XYZ. So the story isn't necessarily about them signing with the club they've put pen to paper for. It's the fact that Man United were linked to them at one point, even though United never were. That is the state of play at Manchester United. It's nuts. I mean, it absolutely is crazy. Going back to the press conference, though, where are we at? Goals. That's what we're talking about. Goals. Now, Erik ten Hag was asked, saying, Eric, you haven't scored, or United haven't scored for 3 games. One of the lowest scorers in the Premier League. You defended Rasmus Højlund previously, but why are you struggling to score goals? And Ten Hag said, quote, we played very strong teams in Liverpool and Bayern, and before we had a very poor game against Bournemouth. We have to improve. We played very well against Bayern and Liverpool, but should have created more chances and been more clinical. So I appreciate what he's saying when it comes to, you could say, well, we haven't scored in 3 games because we've played good teams in Liverpool and Bayern Munich, and you wouldn't expect them to be super high scoring games. But look, we didn't create anything. We've created really next to nothing in a lot of those games, in all 3 actually. When you think about it, Bayern, what did we have? 5 shots in that game. I think 1 was on target. Neuer had nothing really to do. Was there a save? Was there? I think there might have been a header from Maguire. Maybe he tipped off. I think maybe. Liverpool. I mean, the funny thing is with Liverpool, and I still see it today, I mean, some of the Liverpool fans are just still so salty. This argument, they are still pushing, and Jurgen Klopp is still pushing it as well, about United came here... United came to Anfield and got 10 men behind the ball and parked the bus. It's called defending. Like, that is literally called defending. What do you want us to do? I'll tell you what you want us to do is you want us to come to Anfield and lose. And if we're so shit, if we're so terrible as you've been telling that we still are, and we were going into the game, 5-0, 6-0, 7-0, why couldn't you score then? Why didn't you? And if your response to that is, we couldn't score because you got people behind the ball and parked the bus, you're basically saying, we couldn't score because you defended. Heaven forbid, in a football match, a team defends properly and doesn't concede. I mean, you talk about entitlement. You talk about, like, deluded logic of that team, Manchester United, is embarrassing. They came here and they didn't lose. And everyone said they were going to lose 5-6-0. And I'm not even sitting here saying that we played amazingly well. I thought Man United still technically on the ball were really poor that day. And I thought Liverpool were really poor as well. But it's so backwards logic, and the whole anti-football thing again, it drives me insane. It drives me up the wall. The anti-football argument, like there's only one way to play. You can only play like Pep Guardiola nowadays. That's it. And if you don't play like that, you're an enemy of football. Heaven forbid you play direct. Heaven forbid you play on the counter-attack. Because even, let's face it, even when under Solskjaer, and it got really to sort of vibes and stuff like that, but some of our best performances under Ollie were counter-attacking games. Some of our biggest wins were counter-attacking games. Fast forward, rewind even further back. Sir Alex Ferguson played on the counter-attack for years. Years counter-attack. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, I don't like gamesmanship, because this is where I've criticised Atletico Madrid in the past under Simeone. Gamesmanship, that's another thing. Time wasting, that's another thing. That's why I've said, or tactical fouling, that's why I've said, the orange card or whatever it is, sin binning, I'm not totally opposed to it. I just don't think they could enforce it very well. But this idea of you have to play this outwardly, progressive attacking football if you're the inferior team against the team that, when we went there, they were top of the league as well. Top of the league. And we're supposed to go there and lose. Like, it's such a bizarre argument that they still are holding on to. And realistically, what do? You project. When you're embarrassed, you project. It's their fault. It's not embarrassing for us. We're not embarrassed. You sound pretty embarrassed. You sound pretty defensive. You sound pretty much like, oh, we thought we were going to smash this team 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-0, and you didn't. And it's laughable that that's our fault. We're the ones that should be embarrassed. Like, that's the way I can't believe you're standing up and happy that you got a point. Why not? Why not? Arsenal will go to Anfield this weekend. And if they get a 0-0, they will go, that's brilliant. That's it. That's a title-winning performance. I ain't saying United are going to win a title, but I'm saying that the logic of United should ones that should be embarrassed, we've got a lot to be embarrassed about. Read Laurie Whitwell's article this morning. But one thing we don't have to be embarrassed about is that we got a point at Anfield, okay? That's one of the better things we've done this season. It's so nonsensical. We should be embarrassed when we lose 7-0. We should be embarrassed when we draw 0-0. Even if we'd won that game, they'd still say you should be embarrassed. You cannot win. It is nuts. Absolutely nuts. And don't get me wrong, I'd rather us go to Anfield and be so good that we can play open, expansive, attacking football and we can dominate Liverpool and we can win 3-0 or we can really, play well and play exciting stuff and go, look how good Manchester United are. But you're naive if you think that's the case. You're naive if you think that team, look at the team sheet last weekend as well, you're naive if you think that team with a midfield of Kobbie Mainoo on his, third or fourth Premier League start, McTominay and Amrabat can play expansive, expressive football, because they can't. They just cannot do that. They ain't good enough to do that. So what do? You set up your team the best way to possibly win the game or at least not lose. That's it. That's all you can do. And I find it, nonsensical, all that kind of stuff. And the irony is, as Erik ten Hag said, we had the best chance of that game. I've seen the Liverpool fans pointing to the stats and go, we had 34 shots? 30. It's actually remarkable. You want to talk about embarrassing? It's remarkable. You had 34 shots and Andre Onana was comfortable. He made a save, tipped it over the bar, direct header from, was it Van Dijk? There was a save in the second half and that was about it. Trent had a shot that went wide. That was it. So that's when you get into statistics. You've got to be careful with that. You can spam shots all game. Doesn't mean you're a threat. Doesn't mean you're in danger or anything like that. And really, again, I look at the Højlund chance and I look at the Garnacho chance as well. The Garnacho chance, I don't think that's been spoken about enough. The pass from Kobbie Mainoo, who's through on goal, and he just got a bit of he felt sort of Trent coming behind him, and that was enough for him to sort of mess it up. But I think that was a massive chance. I really do. So, yeah, I think it's very odd, that argument. But as far as the goals, look, we do need to create more chances, no doubt about that. In the big games, I said it after I think it was the Bayern Munich game on the full-time view. In the big games, you're just not going to get that many chances, really. And especially if you're inferior to the team that you're playing. And yeah, standards on the floor of Manchester United, I get it. But we're not as good at the moment as Liverpool. We're not. We're not as good as Bayern Munich. We're not. So when you get those chances in the game, this is something that the really successful Manchester United sides were good at, is they would go away from home, they wouldn't play very well, but they'd get a chance, goal. That's it. You've got to be ruthless. You've got to be clinical. And you've got to do that tomorrow at the London Stadium as well. Away from home in the Premier League, you don't always sort of dominate. You don't always dominate the game. And when you do get those opportunities, you have to be clinical, you have to be ruthless, you have to just take them. Now, Ten Hag was asked, though, are you sort of creating enough chances, do you think? And Ten Hag said, I think we can definitely improve. It's not about one player, it's about a group of us. You know my philosophy, we have to attack with 11. It is not about one player, it's about everyone. We need to move the ball better. The decision-making on the ball has to be better. Sometimes we also have to be more clinical. The best chance at Liverpool was ours, as he mentioned. And I do agree. I agree with that, because I've noticed that in quite a few games this season, is sometimes there are moments where the ball goes through the midfield and you get towards the final third and you get in a situation where you have the opportunity to create something. The pass is there to be made to the player in the box, or the pass is there to be played between the lines, or the switch is there to be made, or one of the wingers, whether it's Rashford, whether it's Antony, whether it's Garnacho, whether it's whoever, Bruno sometimes does this, gets the ball in the middle, and it's the next pass. It's the one pass away. That's what you need. We just need that one pass. And the decision-making at times for United this season has just been so bad in those key moments where you go, well, that doesn't count as a chance. That doesn't count as a shot on target or anything like that. But that was an opportunity to create something. And it just feels always it's the final pass. Even against Liverpool last weekend, there were moments, in addition to those sort of big chances from Højlund and Garnacho, there are a couple of times where United did get in behind and you're going, right, pick the right pass or do the right decision, do the right thing. And it's always the wrong one. Anthony got in behind, pulled it back, didn't really work out. I think there was a time with Garnacho as well. And that has been such a weak point for United this season. Such a weak point that you've got to, you've got to make that right decision. You've got to take that right decision. So the link-up play does have to be better. As far as when it comes to Rasmus Højlund, look, he needs to score. I sympathise for him. I do. Because that stat did make its way around last week, didn't it? About Højlund and Martial, I think, were the two lowest strikers in the Premier League in terms of passes received into them. So clearly, they're not getting any service, or the service is very limited. Now, when he still is getting those chances, you still do have to be ruthless, and you have to be clinical, and you have to take them. Unfortunately, he doesn't have the luxury that he would have if he played for a City or a Liverpool or an Arsenal or whoever, a Villa at the moment, in that sometimes with those strikers that play those clubs, Haaland, Ollie Watkins, or Jesus, or even particularly someone like a Darwin Núñez, who's going to miss like 3 or 4 chances a game, they always know, well, another one's coming because I've got creative players around me, I've got creative players behind me, they're going to make chances for me. Højlund doesn't know that. Like, a ball might come in for Højlund, he might miss the chance, and then in his head, he might be like, well, that's me done for the game. I'm not gonna get another opportunity in this game. I get about 1 on average, maybe, and sometimes I get nothing. Sometimes I'm just resting with the centre backs for the majority of the game. So he does need to be clinical. He is still a very, very rough diamond, as it were. There's no doubt in my mind that I think we've overpaid. What was it come to in the end? 72 million, something like that. That shouldn't come as much of a surprise if you read the article this morning. And also, what did he have in Serie A last season? Was it 9 goals? Something like that. So the service does need to be better. And I also feel for him because he scored what I believe to be a perfectly valid goal against Brighton several months ago. The ball, when it was ruled out, it was off, wasn't it? Oh, the ball went out of play, and then a couple of weeks later at St James's Park, suddenly that was in play. Why was it in play? Well, we couldn't determine whether it was out of play. You couldn't determine whether the ball was out of play at Old Trafford that day. That'll make it 1-1 as well. Just another decision where there's no consistency in the Premier League. So, but look, he needs to score goals as well. And I mean, if it was any other club, right? If it was Liverpool or Chelsea or Arsenal or City, and it was nearly December and they hadn't scored, you'd be onto him. You would. And there's also a reason we're looking for another striker, possibly in January. So, yeah, hopefully that goal will come for him. Now, there was a question about the European Super League. Erik ten Hag was asked about his thoughts on that, and also if change was inevitable in European football because of the court's ruling this week. Ten Hag said, quote, "I refer to the statement the club wrote yesterday. I have to look in more detail if I want to express an opinion on whether the structural change in football is inevitable." And to be honest with you, about that, Flex and myself discussed it on the Morning View yesterday when the ruling first came out from the European courts. And my prediction at the time was essentially what happened is that I felt that clubs would come out and sort of resoundingly reject it. I think that they very, very, very much misread the room last time around, and they saw the fan backlash. And my prediction yesterday was that the Super League might try and reformat, submit a new proposal. What we did last time wasn't the right way, of no relegation, no promotion, just these teams coming in, and that didn't work out. And look what you saw, a new proposal. Was a Star League, a Gold League, and a Blue League, and there is promotion, there is relegation. See, we fixed those things, but the clubs are rightly so terrified, and they should be. Because the Super League is built upon not the interests of fans, it's built on the interest of money. Now, I will say UEFA and FIFA are not innocent at all, because I think that after what happened with the Super League, there's an argument to be made that you look at what the Champions League is becoming next season, you look at what the Club World Cup is becoming in a couple of years' time, feels very Super League-ish, isn't it? It's expanding it. It's getting more teams involved. It's getting more matches on. It's bringing in more revenue, because that's ultimately what this has all been about. It's never been about structural reform. It's never been about doing what's best for the fans. It's never been about what's doing the best for the players or anything like that. It's never been about what's best for the actual sort of football pyramid in general in all of these countries. It's only ever been about money. And that's why you've got people like Perez and you've got people like Laporte in Spain going on about, oh, we still think it'd be a good thing, blah, blah, blah. It's because they see the money, particularly that the Premier League clubs make from broadcasters, and they hate it. They absolutely hate it that they're missing out on money. We know the situation when it comes to Barcelona. We know the situation when it comes to their financial situation. So if they can have a situation where they can get bailed out by the Super League, of course they're going to take it. And I find it funny that, Madrid and Barca complain about finances and money in football, where they've broken the world record when it comes to transfer fees so many times historically in the past. So I'd still not worried about it at this point. I don't think, and I think United, they were the first English club yesterday to come out and resoundingly reject it, and I think there was a reason behind that, because as Flex said in his reaction yesterday, Man United were not innocent in the formation of the Super League. In fact, they were front and centre. They were right there when it came to all of that. The Glazers were in the conversations with the banks. I think, was it JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, whatever, one of those banks. They'd secured major funding for it as well. So Man United were not innocent at all. So straight away, resoundingly, they had to be like, right, not interested. Get away from it. We're back in with UEFA, because it's just, that's not going to happen. I still do have concerns, as I mentioned, about the Champions League and the Club World Cup in particular, because I think the Club World Cup is a farce. And I still do think there is a desire. I won't be shocked, put it this way, of getting more clubs that aren't based in Europe into these cup competitions and expanding it. I won't be shocked that those reports about, them wanting possibly to get one Saudi team in or a couple of Saudi Pro League teams in, I'm not going to be shocked. I think there is probably an element of truth to that. Why? One, again, it's money, and two, it's because of the players that they have. If UEFA can find a way to get someone like Ronaldo or Benzema back in the Champions League, I think they'll do it. I really do. I wouldn't even be shocked if they get one American team in the Champions League as well. It might just so happen to be Lionel Messi's team or something like that. Why? Because it's Lionel Messi and it gets the eyeballs going. And if they can get an American team into the Champions League, what does it do? Open up people's eyeballs in America to it as well. It's like, it's just... that's not going to be shocking at all. I mean, there have been those talks about possibly holding the Champions League final in an American stadium. And I know we have a lot of people watching from the States here, but that is madness. I mean, it's madness to have the European Cup final not be held in Europe. How? How can that be a thing? How can that be? So Ten Hag was asked about if that change was inevitable. I do think that... change already has come because of it. I don't even know if it's inevitable. It's happened with the Champions League changing and also with the Club World Cup. So certainly keep an eye on that. But as far as the Super League, I don't think that's going to be a thing. What are people saying in the chat here at the moment? I'll get back to the press conference in just a second. What else are people saying here? Let's have a look. Franklin says, I followed Ahmad everywhere he's gone to and watched all the games. A common theme is that he needs to run a game to show his best. Don't get impatient and turn on him if he isn't what you expected. I think, to be honest, Ahmad will probably likely go out on loan in January. And the reason I say that is because I think that he was going to go out on loan in the summer and then he got injured. So I think him coming back and training just in time for the January window, wouldn't be surprised if he gets a loan move. I think the next step is for him to have a loan move in the Prem to a team that's in the bottom half, maybe someone like a Chelsea. But no, someone maybe a bit lower than that. I mean, maybe like a Crystal Palace or like a Forest or a Wolves or something like that, right? I think that's the next step for him. Because we saw it in the Championship last season. He was phenomenal for Sunderland, but it is a jump, isn't it? It's a jump to go from Sunderland in the Championship. They were in the playoffs, and then playing regularly for Manchester United. You do need to sometimes have that middle ground, and we have seen with him just the benefit of him just playing games regularly, as that chap points out there. Playing games regularly absolutely benefits him, and either way, he's just not really going to get that at United now. Like, he's not going to have, because no one has that, really, apart from Bruno Fernandes. So I think that a loan move to a Premier League team would be best for him as long as he's consistently playing, and then next season certainly we can see what happens when it comes to him as well. Speaking of the transfer window and things like that, Erik ten Hag was asked about January, if there's money to spend. Ten Hag said, the current squad, I am happy as we get our players back. We have a good squad. I think that a lot of our problems, the reasons behind many players not being available, when the players are back, Casemiro will be back, Martinez will be back, Mason Mount will be back, will be much stronger after the winter. So I think he's kind of really tempering expectations there, Erik ten Hag. We said before, haven't we? I've said numerous times, I don't think United do big business in January or anything like that. I think that, again, a couple of loans. I think he'll be just like last year, because this summer was just like last summer in terms of all of this talk about FFP and United having a tight budget. And then what happened? We overspent in our budget anyway. There might be a couple of loans, but I think it'll be mainly outgoings. We're in less competitions as well. So I think that, we know Donny's going. That's going to be done January 1st. He's already had his medical. Sancho, there has to be a resolution to that. I don't know if it's a permanent one, and it might be a loan. Martial, I think they'll see if they can get anything for Anthony Martial. It won't be much, because obviously his contract expires in the summer. United aren't going to extend it. He's on 250k a week, so it remains to be seen. If they can get anything for him. But if they can get Martial off the books, then that's like I said, I think then that's when you get into the territory of looking for a striker. So I reckon a couple of loans. I think they might look for a striker, possibly maybe a centre-back to help lighten the load when it comes to that. But Ten Hag is sort of saying that we're going to have maybe a different squad anyway, because the players are going to be back. I hope so. We just need to ensure that the other players don't get injured as well. It's been that revolving door, hasn't it? And once again, talking about goals, Ten Hag was asked just to pick up on goals. Rasmus Højlund is a young man, different setting, but still not scored in the Premier League. How is he coping with the pressure? And Ten Hag said, it's not all about Rasmus. It's about Marcus Rashford. It's about Alejandro Garnacho, Antony, Bruno Fernandes, Scott McTominay. Don't forget our fullbacks have a big part of that as well. He, referring to Højlund, is open. His mentality is great. He is a very good performer with the stress. He deals with that. If our squad is full, it is better in balance. We should create more chances. So Ten Hag, once again, really stressing it's about chance creation, which I do think is true. But to be honest with you, I do think that United sort of drying up when it comes to the goals shouldn't really come as much of a surprise, because last season, when you look at the bulk of our goals were scored by Marcus Rashford, really, last season. And people did bring up the question, like, what happens if Rashford got injured, or what happens if Rashford stopped scoring, which is what happened this season. Then it basically means we don't score goals. We don't really score that many. It's across the front three. Yes, you talk about Rasmus Højlund needs to score more goals, but it's about chance creation, and then also it's about the other players pulling their weight. I mean, you do look at that. I mean, last weekend at Liverpool, with McTominay in the 10, wasn't it? And you look at that sort of front four, shall we say? So it was McTominay, Garnacho, Højlund, and Antony. It doesn't scream goals, does it? It doesn't. You don't look across that line. It's not like, when you're watching whoever it may be, it's Liverpool with Salah and Gakpo and Nunez and Szoboszlai, you go, there's goals in there. Or with Arsenal, when you're saying, Martinelli, Saka, and then you've got Jesus, doesn't really score a ton of goals, but they're looking for a striker. Whether it's City, if it's not, Haaland, it can be a myriad of other wide players that they've got at their disposal. United, you just look at that front four and you go, where did the goals come from? Because last season they only really came from Rashford. So that's been a bit of a recurring theme. All of those attacking players just need to do more. And Højlund's included in that. So you could argue also it's a tactical thing as well, certainly. But yes, I certainly do hope that Højlund grabs that goal. Super Chat once again from Red Baron says, we have the same headphones, same hoodie. Am I Owen? I certainly hope not. I wouldn't put that on anyone. Yeah, you're everyone. You are only yourself, you know, and you're perfect the way you are, Red Baron. Yes, you don't want to be. Don't want to be me. Oh my God. What kind of punishment, what kind of hell would you be living? Certainly. He was also asked, Erik ten Hag, about the lighter schedule, saying you've been free all week this week. What difference does that make? Ten Hag said, first of all, we've had such a busy program. The lads had some days off ahead of another busy week. They needed the rest physically to get away from football. Mentally, we can go in the week, a great opportunity for us. And then the final question was from someone called Nigel Flanagan, who does what is called Operation Christmas Present, which is donating presents to children in local hospitals. So big up to him, well-worthy cause. And sometimes you do forget with all of the festivities around the holiday period that there are people struggling and suffering. So obviously thoughts with them over the festive period, and big up to Nigel for that operation there. And he was asked, Erik ten Hag, if he had any plans, if he was going to have any time off or any plans around the festive period or anything like that. And Ten Hag said, well, a little bit. You know, their plans really revolve around the games, but he's looking forward to the festive period, and it's big for any club, so he's focusing on that. But any spare time he's going to have joining with his family and having some time together. So if you were curious as to Erik ten Hag's Christmas plans, you've there got it. So there you go, guys. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. We only got 100 likes. Oh, no. We've got, 31 likes to go into 100. So if you haven't already, click the like button. Be sure to subscribe button right-hand corner. What's on tap tomorrow? Tomorrow, there's going to be the match view, the KO match view. Myself, KG, the comedian. What could go wrong? Doing it remotely. So that'll be a lot of fun. Like I said, it's becoming a bit of a festive tradition. KG and myself doing those remote match views over the holidays. So they're going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be doing that one, Boxing Day, and also the 30th is going to be remote. Then we'll be back in the studio in the new year. So a lot of fun, so be sure to join us then. In addition to that, we're going to have obviously all of the fan views, all of the player ratings, etc., etc., etc. coming out of the game. Full-time view, normal match day experience. Flex is going to be at the London Stadium too. He's going to bringing you some really exciting stuff. And if you want to get more in tune with that, and if you want to get your previews and you want to get heated up for that game, you can check out the preview. You can check out the tour of the stadium as well. So UV delivering you the content. Anyway, guys, have a great Friday. Smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. I'll speak to you again very soon. I'm out of here. Peace.